Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Hundies Matter podcast from the American Downhillers, presented by skiracing.com. This is where we break down the World Cup downhills, share our thoughts, stories from the venues, and make our predictions for the upcoming racers. I'm Doug Lewis, winner of the first ever World Championship medal in speed for an American back in 1985, and joining me are the American downhiller legends. AJ Kitt, four-time Olympian, frequent NBC analyst, and the first ever male to win prize money in an FIS ski race. I want to hear more about that, maybe in another issue. Darren Rolfs, two-time winner of Kitzbühel, fastest skier ever from the top to the bottom at Birds of Prey course. We're going to hear about that. And finally, Marco Sullivan, winner of the Chamonix downhill over a guy named Didier Couche, and the American who holds the record for the most downhill starts as an American with 105 starts. All right, Darren, before we start, I kind of borrowed the Hundies Matter from you. You came up with it. Explain what Hundies Matters means.
Well, we're racing against the clock, so every hundredth of a second counts. And that's kind of, I was talking to Phil Sheddig about it, and with Spider back in the day, trying to work on new suits and in the wind tunnel, and every Hundie matters. So we kind of had that printed on the inside of the zipper of the suit. It was pretty cool for a couple of years, and a little reminder of what's at stake right there. So if you're going down the road, put your arm out the window, even if you feel your hand kind of twist, turn, you can feel the drag. I mean, those little things make a big difference. So we're always trying to cut down time, and Hundies do matter.
I never won a World Cup, but I was second by 4 Hundies. Hundies matter. Marco or AJ?
How close? That
day. AJ and Marco, how close have you ever been off the podium or been off the top step?
Well, when I got second in Kitzbühel, I was 18 Hundies from getting my own gondola, which would have been pretty awesome to have two American. Well, there's more than 2 American gondolas with Phil, but I wanted to have a gondola before Darren. Well.
All right, let's go up to Lake Louise. Before we hit Birds of Prey, I want to give a report from Lake Louise. They were able to get in only one race, the downhill on Saturday. I saw it. I did notice a little bit more terrain, Sully. But Sully, you were up there. Break down the race for us. How'd the Americans do as well?
It was definitely a tough weekend with the weather. Like you said, only one race out of 3. It was pretty much snowing the entire time we were there. The one sunny day was the downhill race day, and even then the kind of cloud cover rolled in. It was nice and sunny. Cloud, probably 10 minutes before the start, clouds came in and made it flat light. It really kind of felt like it took the wind out of the sails of some of the American boys. Not to be said that it wasn't a fair race, but they went from a nice day to kind of spit and snow, and I think a lot of the guys did not have the performance that they were looking for. And we had RCS did get a top 10 in 10th place in his first race back after injury last year, which I thought was huge. He was actually on track for even better result, and something near the bottom, he kind of lost a few Hundies, more than a few Hundies, lost about half a second on that last 2 splits, which was a bummer. But the rest of the boys, I think, definitely left something to be desired, and they'll be hunting for it in Beaver Creek. The Austrians, like Doug predicted last week, really stepped up. Matthias Meyer was on fire. I mean, he was actually watching him in the training runs. He was kind of sandbagging in some of the most important parts of the course, not at the finish where you would expect it, but he was kind of standing up through the tough parts like fishnet, C-turn, like he just had it dialed. And then it came race day. He had a little bit later start position because the earlier numbers did really well, and he came down and just smoked everybody. So that was impressive. But for the American boys, I think they're trying to push that to the back of their minds, move on to a new week at home in Beaver Creek.
Yeah, Darren and AJ, what was your experience of maybe not starting out the season with a great result? What do you do mentally to move on to the next race?
Darren, take it.
Oops, can't hear you, Darren.
Sorry, I was on mute there. To rebound, it's just a mental switch. You just gotta deal with it, recognize your mistakes and move on. And to me, it was easy to move on from Lake Louise just because the excitement and coming to to home turf. You know, it was a big deal coming to Beaver Creek for me every year. And I think I just made the switch mentally to really book the next day focus. And I did reach out to RCS. I just want to throw something out there from his run, because I was impressed. Like Marco said, he was really going. I think he was like fourth midway, with the splits. And then he said he didn't nail C turn. He was a little late getting the fall line through Gun Barrel, and so that kind of cost him a little bit in that section. He said he wasn't aero enough on the flats, and then pinched a turn on Claire's that further hurt him. So you got to execute top to bottom. But obviously, I mean, he knows his mistakes. He can clean those things up. And the bottom line is he's happy with the skiing right now. And so you just move on with that. You take that, like you're happy with where you're at, and you make the adjustments. Tactically, you just got to be on.
AJ, you?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's about momentum, and starting off the season with a good race really helps the confidence. And if you don't, you just have to find a way to switch it. And, the sport of ski racing is about persistence. It's about, repetition and persistence. And it's going to be like that all season long. The season's got peaks and valleys, and we're always dealing with, having a race that wasn't our best. So, having that mental fortitude, to be able to bounce back from a week that wasn't quite what you expected is super important in the sport, in general.
Yeah, I tell the kids, take two good things that you did, because everyone did something well, no matter what you did, even if you crash, and then just something you want to work on. Darren, you have a little inside scoop. How does the entire white circus of downhillers move from Lake Louise to Beaver Creek?
Well, not in our days, but the last 3 years, the FIS has been chartering a jet. And so 2 staff members from each team get to go on that jet and fly directly from Calgary to Vail. And so that's a huge bonus for those guys. Makes traveling a lot easier. The others, techs and all that stuff. I mean, throw all the gear on a big truck and it's trucked down to Beaver Creek, like all the entire World Cup equipment and, the wax room gear and the skis. So, I mean, that was a bonus, but, with that like COVID scare up there in Lake Louise, I think there's reasons for a lot of precautions. They got in the Vail Valley Medical set up a huge parking lot for COVID testing for the entire World Cup tour. And I guess I was talking to Travis earlier, and he was saying from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., those guys were just like hanging out, waiting to get tests and just running through all the teams. It was a mess, but they got a day off today and getting ready for getting on snow tomorrow.
And talk us a little bit about COVID and your experience, Sully, getting out of Canada.
Yeah, the COVID thing is a real issue now. It adds another component, and there was some false positives when they tested up trying to leave Lake Louise. Ultimately, I think there was some positive tests and some false positives that caused racers to get retested the night before the Super G. Like, these guys were woken up in the middle of the night saying, we got to confirm what's going on with your COVID test. And ultimately, I don't think any racers tested positive, but there was a US team staff member who's still in Lake Louise because of a positive COVID test. And that's a huge impact with, 4 races coming up in Beaver Creek. If one of the athletes were to miss a series like that, it's super detrimental to the whole season.
Yeah, it's affecting everyone. I mean, there's a couple Austrians who didn't even take the, there's the plane, and they got their masks on. There's a couple Austrians who refused to get the vaccination. They couldn't even fly to Canada. They're missing the entire North American series. So it is something to keep our eyes on, and it is not going away anytime soon. So Lake Louise, I called 2 out of the 3, so I win 1,000 points. You guys all get minus 1,000 points. I don't know what that means. All right, let's move on to Birds of Prey. This course drops 2,500 feet in 1.7 miles with an average speed over 60 miles an hour. Marco, Darren, you've run it a million times. AJ, you ran it the inaugural year in 1997. I've covered it a million times, but let's first break down the course before we get to everyone's experience. Let's talk about this course. what you need to do at each section. It starts out flat. Sully, tell us how to just rule the flats up top.
The flats at Beaver Creek they're unique because they are like flat and you're going pretty slow. Usually in downhill, when you come across a flat section, you've got speed from a prior area and you're like high speed gliding, trying to keep those edges at a low angle. But when you push out of the start at Beaver Creek, I just remember just going slow and you can feel everything. And it's almost, I'm not sure that gliding is really in play. It's really a wax race up there for when the tech nails the wax or gets the skis really fast. That's where you see guys pulling time, because everyone can, or most guys can sit in their tuck and ride a flat ski when you're just basically going straight. So the top flat for me was always not, you were trying to stay aerodynamic and on your flat ski, but pretty much everyone can do that. So mostly a wax race, and really thinking about what was coming up, going over the brink where you really drop into it.
All right. So Mello, there is some terrain up there. We talked last week, AJ did, about how you have to work it. You're for sure working it up there. You come across, and it goes from classical music to rock and roll. Just the talent, and onto Pete's Arena. Darren, you take it from there, because that's where you must have just loved it.
Yeah, I had one thing too on the flats for me. Like I wanted to get as close as I could to those gates, but I did not want to touch them. I didn't want anything slowing me down up there. So that was like another thing I was like focused on, just like skimming the gates without touching them. I didn't want to have any extra resistance, slowing down up there. But like you said, you're trying to be relaxed. You're looking ahead, trying to like really kind of like the skis go and swim like you're talking about before, really subtle on the bases. And then you got to flip the switch and get that into that right footer, drop into the brink, and just, it's blind. You have to like really attack and move forward. And you're still trying to build speed up, but it comes up quick right there. And to me, I think one of the most important sections was off the top, that big long right footer, and then the left right combo going into the turn into the fence, into the fall away there. That kind of set the tempo for what was coming, like almost the rest of the course. It was fast, quick edge changes, trying to be super clean, like really powerful at the top of turn, really clean arc, and just find that flow and that tempo where you're just matching, the terrain as much as possible. And there's aerodynamics aren't in play up there. It's more about how clean you can ski. And you get in the talon turn below the Super G start. And that was really critical there because there's a big fall away. So switching from that right to left foot was for me, like I want to get as early established as possible so I can just take this speed and hold it nice and clean. And then it gets pretty fun. Like there's some big rollers, some compressions. You're going to this one turn in Pete's Arena where you're pushing down in there to accelerate, trying to like generate speed, but then you're sucking your skis up to like float them over the top of this like basketball turn and just like stay, within snow contact to like get, keep the skis clean. And there's just a lot of action. Like I always love that section there. And then it gets back into some bigger high speeding gliding turns below Pete's and to the islands there.
Yeah, so getting through there, again, a lot of terrain, but this jump for sure has at least five huge jumps. You're leaving the air a lot, but 5 huge jumps. AJ, take airtime. Maybe has it changed since when we ran to these guys? But airtime on this course is critical because, number one, you could lose your race, but you could blow out your knee very easily. Talk about airtime and how you approach it.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys are saying, it's that course from the brink to the finish has got more action from, just back to back to back than maybe any course in the world. And if there was another 20 seconds of length on that course, it would be considered one of the best courses in the world for sure. The jumps are a rhythm. I mean, there's not really a jump up there that doesn't come in the rhythm of either the end of a turn or when you land, you've got to go right into a turn. So having the rhythm work and the timing is super critical. And that rhythm and timing can change depending on the line you choose for your turn. If you have a little bobble in the middle of the turn and suddenly you're offline at the launch or whatever. So rhythm, I think, is really, really important. You've got to be comfortable in the air and you've got to be comfortable with long flights. I mean, red tail's huge. When you drop into a deep hole and then you come up out of it, you're in the air again, you land on your left ski. Yeah, Golden Eagle, sorry. And then it's like, I mean, it rivals Val Gardena a little bit with all the airtime and all the terrain movements that you've got to absorb. And, it's a lot of timing is really, really critical. And I just loved it. I mean, it's almost like it lulls you to sleep on the top and the top flats. And then, like you said, it's like all of a sudden the switch goes, and then you've got to be ready to be fully game on from there to the finish line. And it's awesome. It was so much fun of a course to run for me.
And this throwing this out to you guys, usually you want to get on the ground as quick as possible, right? So you have that control back. Is this airtime on this jump okay to let it fly at parts?
I think for the Golden Eagle jump, it's a really flat takeoff and it's a sharp angle that drops away there. So it's one of those where depending on the speed you're carrying into the jump, you don't really have a choice of how much airtime you're going to get. In certain years, that lip is bigger and steeper than others, but I think you want to give it a little press and stay in a good position, but it's really your distance is dictated by how much speed you're taking in.
Yeah, I always say don't fight it. I mean, you take it as it comes, and just make it part of the rhythm and the timing of your run.
Yeah. I know. Go ahead, Darren.
I was saying, like Marco was saying, you just got into AJ off Golden Eagle. You have what you got. As far as you gotta make a good press. There's no, chance you want to try and do a pre-jump on that. That's just like too risky. The next one, is it Harrier? Left footer. I like that one because you're on edge coming into it, and you can kind of almost scrub it. You're on edge, and you can pull your skis up to the side right before the roller, and you're shooting out to the left. To me, that was always the fastest line, going to the left. I didn't want to set up. I wanted to get as much gravity as I could, fall line going into that, and then finish the turn after the landing. And then actually red tail last jump, I would try and do a little bit of a pre-jump on that one. And that seemed to kind of work out a little better there. But I was always going big on the jumps, and the more you're on the ground, the faster you go. But it's just you just take what you got.
All right, let's bring it back to you, Darren. 2003, the fastest ever run from the official start to the official finish, 100 seconds covering a mile, 1.7. Amazing. What was it about that day, that run, the skis? Take us through that experience, because you are the fastest.
Well, back then, U.S. ski team, maybe a few other athletes had a chance, but we go up there on flyway, and I really needed the practice on testing. We did some glide testing up there. We Beaver Creek helped us out a ton. We do some laps with the snowmobiles, and so we had a chance. This is maybe 2 weeks before the race to get on the hill. And Willie Wiltz is my ski tech, and like Marco said, it's a lot of wax tech in that section, and he had my skis flying. That was a big part, for me to stay in the hunt at the top. And then I just had that just everything was just linking up so nice. It was one to the next. It was a perfect day, cold temps, sunny, snow is hard and fast. So, conditions definitely helped, but airs are big. The jumps are big back then. Now you look at them, they're smaller. And so I think that was a disadvantage for us then too, is having that much airtime. But I'm not sure. Things are just going. They've been close. Bodie was I think 3/10, on that day behind me, or maybe the next year. But it was kind of I didn't blow the time out of the water, but it's still been a tough one to match. 1:39.59. So it'd be cool to hold on to that, but we'll see what happens this year.
Darren brought up the fact that Bodie was right there. I want to go through each one of you. What is being on a downhill team, being on the American Downhillers? How do your teammates help you, whether it's inspection, a report? What do you pick one aspect of what your teammates can do to help the team and specifically you ski fast that day? Marco?
I think talking about the aspect on race day or on the training days leading up to the race, how your teammates ski and how the strengths and weaknesses they have. So you can kind of bounce off certain sections of the course, bounce them off your teammate to, someone who's great at the jumping or the gliding or the technical parts. You can talk it through. They can give you ideas. You can give them ideas and end up helping each other that way. And we all know on the race day, you're there by yourself in the start gate, but you can gain some confidence for sure if you've got guys who are actually running the track with you. You're in each other's ear for a few days and just talking about the nuances of the course. And to have that closeness with a few teammates is for sure gives you confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a team sport at that point. And you're always comparing yourself to your teammates. You're training together in the off season, and so you kind of have a gauge of where you should be at. And some teammates can run a bit of a tighter line than that you can. So you gauge their line and their execution off of some of that stuff. But I think the most important thing is that course report on race day. If you got a guy that's in the finish line, he gives you that report and he says, hey, it's just the flight's a little bit further off of Golden Eagle, or the speed's a little bit higher, the speed's a little bit lower, or hey, there's this bump in the middle of such and such turn. This is where you start to really fine tune your run. But I mean, too much information on race day can definitely be detrimental. I just wanted little tidbits down the course, and just a good quick perspective from the finish line was the biggest help.
Yeah, we would feed off each other in training runs, really analyze the lines, like, okay, you try this, I'll try that, back and forth, like try and get the most out of like our limited amount of skiing down this track to see what we can pull off. But there's also, like, thinking back to like what AJ said about Lake Louise in race day, we did hold back on some sections, not like, we know this works, let's not show this on training. I mean, it's just, you're giving up something that you could have on your side a little bit. So we work together as a team as far as analyzing the track, the lines, working on equipment, what skis, like maybe what bases are running the best. We try a lot of different things on those training runs, and just try and come up with the best like equipment package and tactical package for the race. And then you get some feedback from those guys, especially in Beaver Creek. You got all these forerunners, these up and coming kids that can give reports back to even the early guys. Like if we have an American that starts first or second, they can get like a report back from the forerunners even, and get a little feedback. Or we trust our coaches. We have trust in our coaches. Like if there's a hole developing, the airs are big, more speed, what they relay back to us, we can really soak up and use to our advantage.
Yeah, back with AJ and AJ, you can probably differ than me, but we hung out with the Canadians. They spoke English. We hung out with Martin Bell from Great Britain. That was our training partners. I am so blown away. Maybe Marco and Darren, you can talk about this. I think you guys are still with the Norwegians, but how does that work when you're sharing so much? The Norwegian racers are coming up to the American coaches. You're going up to the Norwegian coaches. Is it totally open, or is there some nationality hold back there? Like, is it a fine line? Talk about that relationship.
I think it is totally open. I mean, being in Lake Louise last week, when you inspect the course, the coaches are spaced out in their own section, and every American athlete stops at the American coach and a Norwegian coach, and Norwegians are the same. They're stopping at the American coaches. The video room, they're in the same room, the same workout room. They're block of Norwegian computers here, block of American computers here. They're sharing video. They're all on the exercise bikes together. I mean, they're essentially traveling as a unit, and that's maybe unique to Lake Louise because everyone is in the same hotel. I don't know if that'll, but they're. I mean, it's a huge advantage both ways. I think maybe more so for our guys right now, being able to be there with Kilda, defending overall, well, not defending overall champ, but past overall champ. And I don't know, it's pretty cool to just have that double feedback and two great nations together. So
I'm so jealous that it wasn't like that with us. Darren, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it was a big bonus for us. I mean, obviously Norwegians speak great English, so it helped us out quite a bit to get course reports. And one of our American, coaches is now a coach over at the Norwegian team last few years. Huh, Marco, Pete?
Yeah, Pete Anderson is now coaching the Norwegians.
That's really cool. Really cool. AJ, did you have a team that you worked with at that point during your career?
Actually, the partnership with the Norwegians started at the middle of my career. So Atle Skardal and Jan Thorsen were kind of the premier guys on the downhill team for the Norwegians back then. And we actually traveled together in the summer and went to training camps in the summer for a couple of years. So that whole arrangement began back then, and it's continued, which I'm really impressed that it's still going, because I don't know what it is culturally, but we get along really well with those guys. And I agree, there never was any sort of dividing line, on a nationality type of thing and competitive. We shared everything. We had meals together in the hotel in the summertime, and it was that close. So it was a really advantageous relationship for both sides. This was actually leading into the 94 games in Lillehammer that we started this partnership with them. So I think we benefited. I mean, Tommy won the gold medal that year, and the other Norwegian guys had some good success as well. So yeah, I'm glad to see that it's still going. You mentioned the Canadians, and sure, they were, they spoke English, and we probably raced with a lot of those guys growing up, but it wasn't as open with those guys. I mean, I felt more sort of national protection with the Canadian relationship, both with the athletes and the coaches, than I ever did with Norwegians.
Interesting.
I'll take a step back too, Lou, real quick on it trickled down to even Europa Cup. So before I was on full World Cup schedule, I was traveling around with a couple of Norwegians. I was the only guy kind of doing the Super G GS program. It's either back then it was tech team or speed team. And I was floating between both, and I didn't have any other teammates to cruise around with or staff. So it was basically, I was in the same vehicle with two other Norwegians, and it was all set up by our coaches. But we'd be traveling together and going to these Europa Cups together, and then meeting up with our respective teams when we're there. But it was like kind of just the way it's always been. I guess. It's always come together that way, from early on into the World Cup.
Yeah, and I urge ski clubs and the different states, Vera and Nera. It is so important for us to start working together as U16s, as U14s, training. Go to your place, go to our place, sharing that, because the ultimate goal is to be strong on World Cup. You don't have to win when it's not as important to win as a youngster. So let's all work together through all the clubs. This is for U14, U16, U18s. One, each of you, talk about Beaver Creek. There's so much going on from Talon down. You're not going to have the perfect run. You'll skid out. You'll make a mistake. You'll get low. How did each of you take that mistake and somehow file it, put it behind you, and not have it grind on you and ruin your whole run? Can anybody want to take that?
I'll jump in, and I'll come in with an example. If anybody here watched the women's slalom in Killington, second run, Michaela made a mistake, like 8th or 10th gate. It wasn't a big mistake, but it was enough to keep her from winning that race if Petra had a perfect run, which she didn't, obviously. But what I saw, Michaela's reaction was she buckled down, and the skiing that we saw from her in the first run, where she was a little bit conservative and a little bit hesitant, that went away immediately with that mistake, and she fired to the finish line and had an amazing run. I think with that, she was going to be really hard to beat unless Petra had a perfect run. So for me, if I had a mistake, I always tried to minimize the effects of it, and I absolutely got laser focused after that. And I wouldn't say I pushed any harder, but usually those little mistakes kind of woke me up and reminded me that focus is super important. And I would start to really focus a little bit more ahead. But yeah, minimizing the effects of those mistakes is the most important thing.
I can say from my own experience at Beaver Creek, my best result ever there was 6th place, my first time. And it was because I didn't know the track that well. And I was just skiing it like I was free skiing, like trying to go fall line everywhere. And I'm sure I was making mistakes. I was missing my spots maybe, but I just kept it going down the hill. And I think in downhill, a lot of times, that's the way you got to ski it, is looking for speed, looking down the hill. And if you're not in the right place on one turn, you can hopefully keep those skis going and make it up in the next few turns. And Beaver Creek is so technical. there's so many places where you want to be here, you want to be there. But if you don't hit those marks, it's okay. You can keep it rolling. You got to have that free mindset.
Yeah, just keep hustling. I mean, it was, I had one section where I came in too tight, pinched off a turn above Pizzerina there. I had to like whip the ski sideways, and it wasn't like the way I wanted to enter, but it was just reactionary. And I had to kind of like gain this like distance to the right side, so before I could hook up on the turn. And then it was like, okay, I gave up a little bit something there. Now I got to really push more, and just, you're always like AJ said, be really laser focused. And I mean, I felt like I was like that anyways, but it maybe just makes you hustle a little more and put the hammer down a little harder when you make a mistake. But I think that's what Michaela did too. I mean, you see her like, even when she's behind on first run, she is a gamer. She comes back on second run and just throws it down. It kind of like, I think they're just more like, oh, everything's got to come out. And I think one of the comments, which I always from her, which I always like loved, feeling myself, was like knowing that you left everything on the hill. You had nothing else left, to throw, throw out there. And those are the most satisfying runs you can have.
Totally agree with all of that. And this is something that young racers can practice in training. Don't wait to race day to practice your mental fortitude. Training days, you're going to make mistakes. That's a way to practice. That's the time to practice. Moving on. All right. We have two more things to do. I'm going to ask a question that I didn't even warn you about. Then we're going to make our predictions. So I want to ask each one of you, if you had to pick one, what is the most critical section to hit at Beaver Creek? And it can be we could all agree, but I'm going to say coming out of Pizzerina Pump House, if you've done enough to have the speed at Pump House, from Pump House down to Golden Eagle, not losing your speed, actually maintaining it and staying close to the snow. And that section, you can lose so much. That to me is what I like to watch, and that's most important to me. What about you guys? Most important thing that you think, or what's the one thing that you love to watch about that course?
I think it's the Super G start to Pump House. Personally, I think that's where the race is won and lost. I mean, if you can get through the flats, if your tech did a good job with the wax and you don't blow it up top, then you have an opportunity to win. And if you're there, then I think Super G start to Pump House is where that race is won and lost.
I'd say below Pump House into the islands, because you have there's so much distance there. You could trim off some good line and take speed from there off Screech Out into the flats going to Golden Eagle. And that's kind of like the last chance to really like take all your speed from there to the finish. Yeah, there's a few kind of like little quick pitches, but if you don't nail those two big turns on the islands going to Screech Out, then I think that's where, the race is lost.
I agree with all you guys there. Below Pump House, AJ, you got to have, coming into Pump House, you got to have the speed. You got to maintain it below Pump House. But no one's mentioned from Golden Eagle to the finish. That's a section that just links up so well when you're skiing it, right? If you can just fly Golden Eagle, pump out of the abyss, left footer off Harrier, right footer into the compression, over Red Tail. Guys who ski that well, you see them pull, a couple tenths down there. And that could be the difference between the win and not. So every section.
So it's pretty much like any ski race, like the wand to the finish line. That's the most important section. Start to finish.
The new name of our podcast, Wand to Finish. If you look at, I've covered this race a long time. Let's go to predictions. But if you look at if you really dial in and see the intermediate times, Foyt's, who's been fast here, Foyt's always wins from Harrier down to the bottom. This is a guy we think he's out of shape, and you're tired there for sure, but Foyt crushes the bottom. That's why he's fast there. So leading into my top three, I hope you guys have them ready. I'm going to go Foyt's winning, Kriekmeyer second, because I know he likes this course. This was his first ever podium. And I'm putting RCS, American Downhiller, I'm back, RCS as third. Foyt's, Kriekmeyer, RCS. Who wants next?
I'll take next because you're making me laugh right now. And I'm not kidding you. I had it written down, 3 same guys on the podium.
All right.
But I'm flipping it.
Oh.
And with the win to the third, RCS for the win. Same dude for second, Kriekmeyer, and Foyt's for third.
All right. That is good. Way to mix it up. Who wants next?
I'm going next. I got mine written down right here. Kilda,
Yep.
Jansrud, RCS. But what I want to say is if you look at those results from Lake Louise, 24 guys in the top 2 seconds. There's so much depth on the World Cup downhill tour right now. So many guys can do it. All it takes is one little mistake for one guy to be out, and all it takes is one rabbit coming out of the hat for another guy to have a great run. But I've got Meyer, Ganong, Creekmeyer, Foyts all as my wild cards. So there you go. I want my 1,000 points next week, Louis.
I don't know who else is left for me to pick, but
Just
I'm gonna
mix 'em
go.
up.
I saw Matthias Meyer up in Lake Louise was so impressive. So Meyer for the win. I think Travis Ganong is going to relive his world champs glory. He's pissed about last week. He's going to come out firing. Second place, and I can't go against Dominic Paris. I love that guy. So
That's three new people. Nice job. Way to pull it out of a hat. All right, everybody.
That's what they're going for right here.
Look at
This is
that.
what they're going for.
Super cool. Super cool. Thanks, D Money, for sharing that. Darren has 2 downhill wins, 4 podiums, and part of that was a second in giant slalom. So awesome. And as Sully said, he had a 6th place in the downhill. So how to watch. There are actually 4 races: Super G on Thursday, Super G on Friday, downhills on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. That's as far as the schedule hopefully will go. Not a lot of snow there, so that's going to actually affect how they train, how they warm up. How are they going to warm up if there's nothing to ski on? That'll be interesting. But you can watch it on NBC and Peacock. All right. Next up on the American Downhillers podcast, Hundies Matter, is Val Gardena. If Kits is the most dangerous, Bormio the most challenging, then Gardena is the most fun downhill on the circuit. The amount of times you are in the air, I think you're in the air 23 times, is just amazing. And this is a place, get ready for these predictions. This is a place where the US can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've almost done it before. So Val Gardena coming up next. Thank you to Darren, AJ, and Sully. And if any of you watching and listening have a specific question for our next show, email us at info@americandownhiller.com. info@americandownhiller.com. We'll just end that with the trophy from Birds of Prey with D Money.